when we're thinking about specific opportunities, it always starts with trying to get a deep understanding of, the problem, that we're trying to solve before we jump to what's the right solution and how do we build and all that. So, the places that I would, really dig deep are, one, really trying to understand what problem, are we trying to solve, for the consumer. And we talked about that, a little bit earlier in the show. And, Ted Levitt has this great quote that, consumers don't want a quarter inch drill, they want a quarter inch, hole. The consumer doesn't necessarily want a solar panel. They're trying to solve some other fundamental, problem, whether it's economic related or, signaling something to their community about, their values. But, what problem, what's the biggest, most important unmet problem that we could go after? And then the second piece, innovation is often about, trying to overcome barriers that prevent consumers from, adopting new solutions and changing their behaviors. And I'd be curious, Joe's perspective on, what have been some of the biggest barriers that, you wrestle with when you talk to customers?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest barriers is around permitting and interconnections. It's very difficult to set good expectations with customers when permitting authorities and utilities are constantly changing their rules around solar and storage, which is a very new industry where they need to get comfortable and understand it. So there's a lot of permitting jurisdictions we work with that don't quite understand solar yet, certainly don't understand storage, and are trying to make rules that keep everybody safe, sometimes go a little too far, but they are always, when we sell a job, and in DC, being in Maryland, DC, and Virginia, many different counties, sub-counties, towns, hamlets, with all different kinds of rules, it can be difficult to set expectations around how long it's going to take, which is why I think it was Scott mentioning that there's 4 out of 5 people are disappointed by those first couple of months of their solar project development. A lot of that is why. If we had everything in our hands from design to installation, it would obviously go a lot faster. There'd be a lot fewer frustrated people, but it's difficult because it's a constantly moving target. And so we want to set expectations that are reasonable, but we also don't want to say it's going to take 8 to 10 months to get your project done, because that's not compelling. So I think that's the biggest thing that we face day to day.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I only have a passing knowledge, with the industry and the challenges that you all are wrestling with, but it seems like there's an interesting tension in this space that to cross the chasm, you've got more and more consumers who don't want to engage with that complexity, right? And so, in those situations, when you have that type of disconnect, the thing that I think we see that becomes really, really important is, is this trust factor, right? They really need to be able to trust, the person they're dealing with, that they're getting the right solution, and that even though they don't understand why it's taking so long, like that is that's the best that it can be done. And so, I'm curious if you said that, hey, we're going to optimize, the experience and how we engage with customers to maximize, trust, what would we do differently? Or what could we draw from, other things that we have in our life where, there's a situations that requires a high degree of trust and another industry has figured out how to deliver that trust. What is it? What have they done? And could we adopt some of those behaviors into our business?
Yeah, I think the one thing that I would love to do, and I'm still trying to figure out how to do, is to provide an estimated install date for every single customer in a system like Bodhi, where it's changing depending on the circumstances. It's changing depending on how quickly we move or how quickly the permitting authority moves, because that's what everyone wants to know. And today, the way that works is someone sends me an email and says, what's going on with my project? Where am I in the queue? And I tell them, here's the number of people in the queue. Here's the number of people ahead of you. Here's how many projects we're doing every week. We think it's going to be 5 weeks. And it's very not automated. So having something like that, I think, would go a long way toward building trust. If you could say in the beginning of the process, here's how many projects we've got, here's how long we think it's going to take based on full transparency. And then as things change, you can inform the customer based on changing circumstances, and they can go see their estimated install date. I think that would build a lot of trust, and I haven't seen that done yet, but I'm sure it can be done.